Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Nicole. I'm a homeschooling mom / part-time work from home mom. I have a daughter who just turned 11 and is doing 6th grade, and my son is 4 doing some pre-K. Okay guys, so today's video is going to be all about my review of the Book Bandit novel study that we did for a Rover's story. We read this with our science unit. We did The Night Sky by For the Love of Homeschooling that I recently released a video on. I want to go through, flip the camera, tell you what I liked about this, more things that I liked than didn't. This was really a great novel study. It has a lot of cool components in it, and there's a lot of different ways that you could use it. Now, let's talk about this book. This book was so sweet, you guys. It was so heartwarming, and it was essentially, it's about the story of this rover that starts developing human emotions. He's built to go to Mars. He has to go to Mars to save a previous rover that got stuck there. It's his experience and relationship with the hazmats, as he calls it, who build him, as well as his relationships with Fly, which is this little thing here, and Guardian, which is a satellite, and just his life and how he observes Mars and everything around him. It's a super cool story. We really liked it. I forgot to ask my daughter's rating for it, so hold on, let me ask her real quick. Okay, so I just checked with my daughter and she said she would give this a 5-star rating. So sweet, so cute, and actually you really did learn a lot about Mars and space in the process of Resilience, which is the name Rez's story. So, okay, so I'm gonna flip around the camera and I'm gonna show you the inside of the Book Bandit novel study. All right, guys. So as I mentioned, this is a Book Bandit novel study. The Book Bandit is a teacher-paid teacher store, and this novel study was $12.15. She has so many different novel studies for a wide variety of books. It's really a great resource. So what she does is she generally breaks this down into every 10 pages, and then you have some activities, and she has pre-reading activities that'll show you. Now, some of this in here, you'll notice my daughter didn't write on. We did, I would say, 90% of this orally. For one, because it was through the summer. And she also did some of this in a vocabulary notebook, which I'll show you. And she also did some of this in an activity notebook. So here's a vocabulary notebook we used for it. Okay, so let's start here. We have some pre-reading activities. And as you can see, she did write a little bit of this in the beginning. So I would always orally ask her the questions. And so like here, you see pages 1 through 10. So she'll have some questions, sometimes vocabulary, and an other activity. And then she'll have an additional activity. Right here, there's a nonfiction reading to do with an additional activities. Sometimes, like here's another one, those pages 11 to 20. And this was the activity that you did. So she always had some comprehension questions, some sort of an activity, sometimes vocabulary, sometimes something else, and then another activity to do. Now, what I found is that we read too quickly. And so sometimes there would be a lot of activities, too many, honestly. So what I ended up having to do was just kind of pick and choose. Once we say we read 20 pages, then I would go through those 20 pages. I would ask her every question orally. I would go through all the vocabulary, and I'll show you how I would do that. And then I would pick through like the activities. Like for example, I had her do this one. And then I would have her pick and choose the ones that we wanted to do. So how she does vocabulary, what I love about it is that she takes the sentence that the vocabulary word is in from the book, which I love because I always have my daughter do copy work with the vocabulary word in the sentence. So once I am disassembled, I am left with only my brain. What does disassembled mean? So then what I would do is I would ask her this, and if my daughter could tell me what this word meant in a way that I knew she understood it, then we wouldn't do it. However, if she couldn't tell me this definition, then we would go into the book and she would write down the name, she would put the definition in her own words, she would draw it, use it in a sentence, and then copy work from where she got it. So see, this was from a Rover story. So I would have her do this for any vocabulary words that she didn't know. But a lot of them she did. And sometimes this right here would be a activity to do with the vocabulary. So here it's a connection. What do you already know about robots? Think of 3 different possible titles for this chapter. And again, the comprehension. And so she read this, but she really liked learning about robots. Okay, then here we would do the same thing. I would ask her the vocabulary questions to make sure that she knew it. I would pick and choose what she was going to do, and I would always orally do these. And then she would do the activity. Be the illustrator. Pretend you have been asked to illustrate a page for this chapter. Choose your favorite page and illustrate below. Okay, and then here's the vocabulary. I would ask her what that meant. And then I would have making connections. Rez is feeling jealous. Write about a time when you felt jealous. She did that in her writing notebook. And then what is the same and what is different between Rez and Journey's experience? I had her do that. We didn't end up doing this one. She just told me what the email would be to introduce herself. Again, it was a summer. Maybe if it had been in the school year, I would have had her do more. Sometimes I had her do it in a writing notebook. Sometimes I didn't. It just really depended. Okay, so again, then she had a lot of these. Write 2 questions for the characters from these page. What do you think they would answer? I would read the comprehension questions. We do the vocabulary. I would always, generally for these, she would just tell me, okay? And then here was another nonfiction read about Mars and then an activity to go with it. So again, it was always in the same fashion. She gave you pages to read. You had comprehension, vocabulary, some sort of an activity, and then an activity for them to do. That was on point of view. And it goes through this in the same fashion. So there really is so much here that you could do. See, these are all with the vocabulary. There's just so much involved in here. I really did like it a lot. Write a comic strip of your favorite scene in the story. Like, there's just so much. Here's another nonfiction, Life on Mars. And then here's the activity to go along with it. So if you were doing this during the school year, reading these pages was definitely appropriate. You could easily read those 10, 11 pages. It's the right amount, and then do these activities. We did do that in the beginning, but as the story went on, she really, really wanted to read further and further. So I was finding that it was harder and harder to do it all. She actually wrote this in a notebook. Okay, so again, just going through the same pages. Here's another nonfiction for her to learn about. And I really did like that because she was teaching you a lot of things about what you were learning. We were learning about Mars and space already, but had we not, this would have been really helpful. Okay, so always these really cool, unique ideas. So here you can see this might have been, we did it all orally because we did do the story event. So that tells me we did this orally. Sometimes I would write it in for her and dictate for her. So just so fun. Look, this is a nonfiction comprehension again. So this is really nice because it had questions, it had vocabulary for me to pull, it had activities for me to choose. So you do not have to do everything, but they're very unique and they're very different. Here's a cause and effect. There's just a lot of stuff. So you can really pick and choose. I think what needs to happen for me next time is going in the expectation that we're not going to do it all, and doing as much orally really does help to get those in, and then pick and choose those things that you really want them to write. So this is a teacher guide. I did not print off the vocabulary cards, but she does provide those if you want to do some quizzing and the answer key. So I just printed off the answers. And here you'll see, here's vocabulary. Overpriced. She gives a definition. Priced more than it is worth. Overused. Used more than it could cope with. So what I did is I would give this page to my daughter when she was working on the vocabulary so she could have the definition that the creator intended for her to have. So this is something that she also provides. So this just kind of continues in the same fashion. Activities, pages to read. And then this is where it ended. She had, let's wrap it up. Write your own wrap to tell the story. Be as creative as you can. My daughter opted not to do this. And then she did this in a reading log, her book review. So she did do a pretty elaborate one. And then in the end, she always has story elements and vocabulary activities. So you've got character, we worked on the setting, you have a summary, which she did in her reading log. So I didn't have her do it here. We talked about the plot tension, plotting the events of the story. The themes we went over, ended up talking through all of these. That was a really fun part. Now, you could do a vocabulary quiz. So what she says is that you could, instead of using a vocabulary notebook like what we did, you could simply write the meaning and the sentence here and then go ahead and quiz them when they're done. So she does provide this for you with all the vocabulary that's included, which I definitely would have used had I not already had the vocabulary notebook. She has a word search that you can create if you'd like. Wow words. This is activities for the vocabulary. And then calligrams. Choose one of the vocabulary words and design it as a calligram. I actually didn't notice this, or I definitely would have used it. That's a really creative idea. So as you can see, I did not show you every single page, and there were some things that I didn't end up printing, but she has so much information packed full. For me, I try not to kill the love of reading the novel with book studies, and it's something that I'm really trying to navigate right now, because my daughter told me that eventually she felt like it was kind of being sucked out, the joy, even though some of these were fun. So once I started adding this more orally, less writing, and only having her writing the activities I wanted her to do, that really did help, because then when she did write, she was happy to write it. And I feel like she retained more, and we just have better discussions when we're going back and forth. But again, I would definitely recommend it. There's so many ways you could utilize this. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know. I always love to talk to you guys in the comments. If not, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.